Everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking to Craig Zucker, attorney and shareholder at Maddin Hauser. Craig, it's great to see you.
Great to be on, John. Really appreciate it.
Loved co-hosting the other day with you, and I'm looking forward to diving in. Craig, I want to jump in because you do business law, and I think, whether you are a solopreneur or a fortune company or anything in between, I think there are things, and one of the things I want to start talking about is what gets missed that people look back in hindsight and say, I should have invested in an attorney that could look at my business and really guide me where to go. What are some of those things?
So many times it's in a document, it's in an agreement. Devil, as we say in law, we say the devil's in the details, right? And I think that a lot of times deals are made, but deals aren't papered. Very common mistake. Or they're papered, but they're not papered appropriately or adequately. And we end up fighting. That's what we fight about. Are those details, are those open holes? And if we could stitch it up at the beginning, have a little foresight and planning, good judgment, good planning, foresight avoids a lot of problems at the end of the road, and so we try and build it from the worst case scenario all the time to the best and always hope for the best. But if you do it that way, I just think that's really smart. And I've seen it. It's 37 years now I'm doing this, and I've seen it time and time again.
Let's talk about that. I think sometimes I'm a business coach. I coach a lot of people who I have a lot of these conversations with. I'm referring them to attorneys. But whether it's a legal issue or any issue, there seems to be this thing where people think they can just keep everything in their head, or remember what the other person said and what they talked about, a week ago. And so why do you think people, two questions, why do you think people are so hesitant to actually paper something, put something down in writing? And what is a tool to get them to do that faster?
So the resistance, boy, I wish I can explain it. Everybody always comes in with rose tinted glasses. You're thinking, why do I need to paper something that is going to be just so great? And it always looks great. Everything was great at the beginning. We love each other like brothers. What can possibly go wrong here?
Right.
What do I need to paper it for? Right. And, that's, my wife always says, hey, why do you always think so negatively? Why is everything so dismal? It's not dismal. It's like I said, we look at a worst case scenario. You hope for the best, you plan for the worst. The deal lands, hopefully on the best side or somewhere in between. But you got to get over that. It's going to be great because things don't, as we know, things come along. Unexpected events come along. Things don't go the way you thought. So your question is, what's the hesitancy? I think that they think at the beginning of the game, this is a win. What do I need to paper it for? I know this guy. I know him for 30 years. This deal's going to be great. Smooth sailing. What do I need to spend, $500, $600, $700 an hour on a lawyer for? This guy gave me his handshake. It's good.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think guys like you and I, you're an attorney. I'm not. I took my Princeton review, walked out of my LSATs after 10 minutes. But I think where we are similar is, and especially a lot of companies sit around and you sit with them, I sit with them, not as an attorney, as a business coach, and we're forecasting numbers. And then we're setting plans, 1, 3, 5, maybe longer, 10, reverse engineering. And it's pretty normal to forecast numbers. But sometimes people can't forecast problems. And attorneys like yourself, what you're talking about is you're able to sit in a room and forecast a future problem. There is something I think about often is there's no bad decisions. There's just bad assumptions. And one bad assumption can take down a company. We saw it in the likes of Blockbuster, Borders, Kodak. They all made one wrong assumption. And so so I understand what you're saying, because that's your business to forecast what could potentially go wrong. I know when I'm talking to clients, in many cases, I say, well, if you do that, then this is a high probable outcome that may come. Sometimes it's favorable, sometimes it's not. So when you are, Craig, forecasting problems that could arise, how do you raise awareness of somebody when, like you said, we're brothers, nothing could go wrong? They're looking at it through one lens, but it's your role to get them to believe in you, whether they believe it or not, that they need to take the right precautions.
Well, you're hitting on such a fundamental aspect of the practice of law and what we do every day. And first of all, when you say, how do you get them to do that? A new lawyer, the practice of law and that learning curve is an agonizing metamorphosis. We all know that. But as lawyers, and as we get more seasoned, a lot of that good judgment that we give comes from bad judgment. So how do we get them to do that? Because we've seen the story and we know how it ends. And it's not what they may think. And it's sharing that experience and that wealth of knowledge that you have. We're called attorneys and counselors, and attorneys and counselors for a reason. Attorneys on the legal side. We can look up the law, we can apply the law, we can write the law, but the counselor part of it, that's where the one-to-one relationship and the focus comes from. Counseling, establishing trust in the client relationship and saying, look, I know it's rosy. I know you believe in this, and I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't believe in it. I'm just here to tell you that the outcome may not be what you think because of X, Y, or Z. And how do I know that? Because I've seen it. I had two people at the beginning with the same plan, same playbook that you're telling me, that ended up in an implosion, both of them suing each other, and now they don't speak. And why? A missed issue, a missed cue. So what's so wrong if we plan for that and hope it never happens? Nothing. And you build the playbook from there. I have always said, where does good judgment come from? It comes from bad judgment.
Right. Yeah.
Fool me once, as they say. But
100%. So I want to talk about just, the human nature to resist. One of my favorite books, and the Think community, whether you're a client or listening to this podcast or both, I talk about this book a lot. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And I love all of his work, specifically this book, because the book defines why we resist. And what it talks about is that we resist what we need to do most. And the book defines it and then gives action items to raise awareness to stop resisting. And so when you're talking to people on what is in their best interest, why do you think that they resist when they know you're right? And B, how do you break down, as their attorney, the resistance?
So I believe that resistance comes from either fear. It's just fear, because let's face it, the people, particularly the people I deal with, they're smart people. They're not sitting across the desk from me because they were idiots.
Yeah. But
to talk about a bad outcome or an improbable outcome or something that they haven't pre-considered as they're going into it, they don't want to. They're filled. On one hand, it's good. Like I said, my wife's always on my case. Why are you so negative? Why do you think it's not going to work? It's not that I don't think it's not going to work. It's that I have to anticipate. We have to anticipate. And getting people to anticipate causes anxiety.
Yeah.
Causes fear. Why do you want to go into something thinking that it's not going to work?
Yeah.
So the optimism is great, but planning for the bad outcome ahead of time, pre-planning, is just smart. And getting over that curve, getting over that barrier with people, it's human instinct. It's just plain out, outright human instinct. We see it. We see it with our kids. All parents, they've been there, they're older, their parents are looking back and they say to their kids, I know if you do this, nothing good is going to come out of this. But your kids don't believe it. They're filled with, how could that ever happen to me?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Stuff happens. It could, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pre-planning is the key in everything I think that you do. When I do keynotes, I plan so much and prep so much to look like I'm winging it. My son just had an interview and he spent probably, and some of it was with myself, some of it was with myself and my wife. He spent so much time preparing for the interview, role playing with us, prepping everything he could possibly think of, doing the research. Everything requires planning. I want to talk about, you specialize in business law, and I want to separate law, which we've been talking a little bit about, and business. Who did you learn business from?
So I come from a business family. I'm really, really proud of that. My parents owned a small family-owned business, closely held business. My parents were in the hearing aid business, pretty weird business, but in the hearing aid business. My father, he tested and worked with hearing disorders and went into the retail end of hearing disorders and went into retail hearing aid sales. And that led to him opening up in the very beginning of his business ventures, a mom and pop hearing aid store, if you will. And he marketed and built his business from ground up. I believe he started his business with about $500 and in a little office building, and that morphed into a multi-office franchise. He subsequently became a national franchisee with a company that's still in existence today, Miracle Ear Hearing Aid Centers of America. He was the franchisee. He also owned and operated concessions into Sears, the old Sears department stores. He had the hearing aid department. And I grew up watching that. I grew up watching those efforts and his planning and his enthusiasm and his heart and soul in a family-owned business, and a lot of valuable lessons. So if I had to credit anybody, it would be my father as my grassroots guy, and being surrounded, with those business values and that ethic.
Yeah.
And I stress ethic because he had a great business ethic. He was committed to the cause. He worked really hard. He did it hand in hand with my mother. So it was a relationship thing, and it was truly a family. My sister worked in the business. I worked in the business, and it was great. And what a great front row seat I had at that show.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit more. I love that story, by the way, and just the grassroots of it. And I do think, I know I learn, and I think a lot of us learn just from being an observer. And so what else did you, as you talk about, watching that, what were some of the nuances that you put into your business today that you watched then implement still today?
Commitment, I think, is the number one driver. I'm committed to the cause. And when I say commitment, it's working hard, it's staying the course. I'm a believer in trying, taking on some risks. I'm a pretty conservative guy by nature, and everybody that knows me knows that. But I also believe that you can fall and get back up again. And it's kind of a mantra that we interviewed with scribe.com, I think it was last week or 10 days ago. And your interviewee asked me, if you were going to write a book, what would you call it? And I told him, if you fall, get up, or fall and get up again. And I believe that. So a little bit of risk when you can afford it and it's calculated, and then getting up again, I think is great.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about that. So, falling, getting up again, we learn from our lessons, which I want to dive into in a minute. But, you watched your father, you watched your mom, you learned a ton. Now people are watching you, right? And so what's the responsibility you have as people are watching and observing you, your family, your kids, your colleagues, and people that you don't even know see you as a mentor? What's that responsibility that you have?
So I think it's a daunting responsibility, huge responsibility. I believe absolutely in paying it back. I've been very fortunate to have a really good path forward. I've learned a lot. I've learned from great leaders. My father, as I mentioned, was one example. Prior to joining Maddin Hauser, I was in a small boutique law firm for over 32 years, I believe it was, the Zucker Friedman firm. And I was fortunate, call it luck, maybe not, but fortunate to be surrounded by great people and great leaders. And they taught me, and they taught me well. I learned a lot about commitment, values, character, ethics. And I believe in giving that back. We have a lot of young lawyers here at Maddin. I'm on the mentoring committee. I'm currently mentoring 2 fantastic lawyers, and it's just a privilege to be able to take what I've embraced and put into my career and try and show them and give back to them what so many great leaders in front of me gave me. So I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, I love that. And so as you're teaching them, as you're talking about falling down and getting up and, everything that you just mentioned, if you had to extract one lesson that you had to learn the hard way, what would that be? And, how would you guide someone so it doesn't burn as badly for them?
That's a really tough question. I think indifference. And when I say indifference, you can't be equivocal. You have to make decisions. You have to go with your gut. You have to use what you think is the best judgment at the time. Make that decision and move forward. My lesson would be that vacillating and dwelling, that's not going to get us anywhere. It's just not. And so just relying on yourself and building up that confidence to know that when you make a decision, it's the right decision, and go with it.
Yeah.
Taking, of course, everything into account. And like I said, I've said it several times now, perhaps. I'm a conservative guy. I don't like to make these wild, out of the box decisions. I like to try and consider everything, but making a decision, sticking to it, and staying the course.
Yeah. You bring up something that is very difficult for people in general, which is how to make a decision. And people struggle with that. I would say it's in alignment with asking for help. People have a really hard time asking for help. In community, we talk a lot about this on the show, making a decision, and what Craig's talking about, I think, is so important. Something that I've talked about, I'll suggest again, is having a formula for how you make a decision. Who are the mentors that you reach out to? Have it on a piece of paper. What are the pillars of things that you typically have to make decisions on, and what are some questions that you ask yourself that are kind of built in that help you kind of kind of just tap in intrinsically to what you want to do, and then ultimately make a decision. It's a lot harder than that, just trying to give a little bit of a framework for that. Let's talk about you, Craig, and the type of clients that you like to work with. Who's your ideal client, and why are they calling you?
So I think the ideal client is dealing with, I love the family business.
Yeah.
I have one particular client that the business is 100 years old. It's gone from generation to generation. And I've watched the current now president and driver of this business, and I've watched his commitment to ethics and character and people. And it's tremendous. I've sat in depositions with him where he turns and shows the family generational ties to the business and talks about what's important and why he does it. He does it for his family, but he does it for the right reasons. He makes decisions based on the right outcome and doing good. And I mean, what else can you ask for in a client than someone that's committed to high virtues, high ethics, high character? That's my favorite. And I find that because a family-owned business is a family-owned business, it's the lifeline of the family. It's what's talked about at the dinner table. It's what's talked about at the holidays. It's what's talked about on a daily basis. It's the financial engine of that family.
Yeah.
And when it's generational, it's even more so. And so I love working with those people.
Yeah.
I've worked with the big companies. We've been involved in huge cases with a board of directors and a set of executives, and then that's great. It's great to see that process in motion. It's exciting, and it's challenging. And again, they're smart people, and they keep you on your toes, right? And it's very exhilarating and rewarding. But you asked me what's my favorite, and I love a small family-owned business that's really just it's just there's so much to it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I as a business coach who works with solopreneurs to Fortune companies, I do work with a lot of family businesses as well. And one of the things I find sometimes is that they tell me they have the best, most productive fights in front of me that they've ever had, because they sometimes need a facilitator to listen and then clean it up so everybody walks out hugging because they're going to dinner, right after together as a family. But sometimes the family businesses, I love your answer. They really need somebody who can sit back and listen to different generations and hear and see what's not being heard or seen, and raise some awareness and give perspective and share different perspectives and enlighten everybody. It's a big responsibility, I think, to facilitate through that, especially when you're talking about, in this case, in one example that you gave, the 100-year-old company, because there's a lot of people that need someone to just help them through it, and they do miss things. I think anytime you don't start a business from scratch, there are fundamental things that you just miss to no fault of your own, and you need somebody who's looking at things from the bedrock up. So I think it's great.
So let me add something to that equation. Yeah. You just hit a point that made me think, and that is, when we're going from generation to generation, we're going from culture to culture.
Yeah.
The family that started in the 20s lived in a completely different technological and economic reality than what we live in today. And the families that ran their businesses in the 20s that then went to the 40s and in a wartime environment, to the 60s in a counter revolution, to the 70s, and then into the 80s and 90s in a technological boom. All of those periods brought on a completely different business culture with it.
Right.
And here's what I've seen, particularly in the generational business. And I'm going to give you a perfect example that you talked about. You got to change with the times.
Yeah.
You got to embrace those changing times, because if you don't embrace those changing times, you're going to die on the vine.
Yeah.
Blockbuster and the video stores and the airline industry and the automotive industry, if they didn't change with the times, they died, and they did.
Yeah.
We don't see them. We don't see the small home appliance stores anymore because it went to big box, and we don't see the video stores because we don't have video anymore. So who's buying a DVD or a cassette tape to put into their VHS machine? It's gone. And the businesses that can turn that corner and change with the times, and the owners that embrace it, can't be resistant to it.
Yeah.
I'm one of those. I'm one of those old dogs that doesn't particularly love new tricks. Every time technology changes, I know if I don't change with that technology in my business, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Just as the TV repairman no longer exists, just as the Michigan Bell guy that came out to your house and put jacks in your house, he's gone. Those are all business climate and conditions that change because of time.
Yeah. And I'll add one more year to that. Thanks for that. Is if your business from 2022 to today, because of technology, is going to be different, and moving forward, it's changing faster than it's ever changed before. There is AI technology out that I don't think most people know about, and B, when they do, they don't necessarily use it. And it's going to be revolutionizing businesses in turbo speed over the next 24 months. So I agree with you. It's so important to, in community, we talk a lot about this. As a business leader, you must be ahead of real time and be forecasting always. Many of you can do it on your own. Many of you find the importance of investing in mentors, like business coaches, like attorneys, to help you stretch and ask you questions to get you thinking differently and forecasting. So it's so important. It's so
And
important.
you're so, I'm going to throw you a bone. You're so good at it, Jon. Here I are doing a podcast. Podcast wasn't in my vocabulary 5 months ago, 6 months ago. It just wasn't.
Right.
I'm busy. I'm doing my thing. And if someone said to me, do a podcast, get yourself out there, let people hear you. A podcast,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And along comes Jon, the business coach, and says, hey, this is the wave, embrace it. And here we are. I am embracing it.
Yeah.
I welcome it. And you're really good at that, Jon.
Well,
You're
I
really
appreciate
good at
it.
showing people, the road ahead and moving with the times. It's just so great.
Thank you.
We all have to do it.
Yeah, we have to do it. It's not really a choice anymore. If we want to, be on the airways, I think community, we talk a lot about this too, which is everybody is a media company. Everybody is a product. We must productize ourselves. We must be clear with our messaging. We must be a TV station that has a ton of different options for people to connect with us, and that's great. All right, let's move on to a quick speed round, Craig. A book that's had a big impact on you.
That's a tough question. I think I'm in a book club. I love the book club. I've read all different genres, and but a book that's really, I loved Clinton's book. I loved Bill Clinton's book. I thought it was great. I thought it was inspirational, and I'd say that was a very impactful.
Yeah,
a guy that really rose from Little Rock, Arkansas, to President of the United States, with from nobody to again the president, and the route that he followed, very impactful.
All right, good. Best piece of wisdom your dad or your mom or both gave you?
Again, I'm going to go back to what I'm passionate about, and that's fall and get up.
Yeah. Finish this sentence. Last question. One thing everybody can do to slow down, pause, and be a little bit better of an observer, to learn something by just observing, is what?
Listening. You've got to be a listener.
Tell everybody, Craig, where they can connect with you, learn more about you, the type of law you want to do again, anything you want to tell them.
So I'm Craig Zucker. As we have said, I am an attorney, shareholder, and a member of the executive committee here at Maddin Hauser. We are a full service law firm, a business law firm at its roots, real estate, transactional, mergers, acquisitions, buy and sell a business through us, form a business, start a business, insolvency, bankruptcy, creditors' rights, full board commercial litigation. We have a wonderful probate section, wills, estate planning, high net worth. We have a wonderful banking operation here, mortgage banking and commercial banking. And we have a defense section. So a very broad spectrum, full service business firm. I'm here. We're open for business every day. We're online, Craig Zucker at maddinhauser.com. Easy to find me. And at our website, www.maddinhauser.com. And we're here for the business world. We always say we are a local firm with a national reach, or a small firm with a big punch.
Yeah.
We operate all over the country. I have cases in many states right now. Nothing's too far, nothing's too close, nothing's too small, nothing's too big. So we're here for you.
It's great. Maddin Hauser, I've been meeting when I was in commercial real estate at Marcus and Millichap. Steve was coming to our office and, working with agents and just the Maddin family, has always just been a great name in the community. And, kudos to Maddin Hauser and Steve and you and, everything that your law firm is doing. Think Community, I want to chat about a couple things that that Craig shared today, which I think is really important, and just a couple highlights. The devil's in the details, the importance of pre-planning, forecasting out problems, being committed, making decisions. But most importantly, I'm going to just kind of, talk about your dad and your parents for a minute. There is college, and there's school, and there's books, and there's articles, and there's TED Talks, and those are all really important on different levels. But nothing to me is more important than sitting back, slowing down, and pausing and paying attention to those around you that are teaching the lessons in real time and grinding it and hustling. I watched my dad grind it out in his dental practice, and I watched my father grind it out. I watched my mom. She didn't work, but she grinded it out as a stay-at-home mom. And as I get older, I'm 52 now. I can sit back and still go back in time and observe as an older person and still take the lessons from it. And so it's not always about the book and the article that you read, but also just paying attention and taking a minute to think and rethink and extract lessons from, the people that are important to us, and the ones that really taught us the game. So it's great. So I appreciate your story, Craig. As always, Think Community, if you're looking for a business attorney, everybody grows up, or most everybody grows up, and they know they need an attorney. They don't know they need a business coach. They know they need an attorney and a CPA. They don't know they need a business coach. But for those of you, and I talk about this a lot, there are things that people see as an investment, and there are things that people see as an expense. In my opinion, an attorney is always an investment. Because
couldn't agree with you more, John.
It's not an expense. It will save you and help you and guide you the way you need to be guided. Craig, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Tell everybody one more time how to connect with you.
Craig Zucker at czucker@maddinhauser.com. 248-352-7599 is my direct dial phone number, or find us at www.maddinhauser.com.
Right. Good. And if you want to talk about business coaching, you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. And I'm just going to give myself a plug, which I never really do this on my podcast, but I really should start doing it. My book that I wrote many years ago, which I give away for free on my website, jondwoskin.com. I just launched a companion workbook, PDF companion workbook, so you can really grow your business and read the book, and if you want less time, and do the workbook and grow your business and your mindset. That can be found at jondwoskin.com. Craig, thanks a ton. This was awesome.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
You too.